Hi there. This is a pretty informal video. Been debating on whether to make or, whether to make this a public thing. And I finally decided to do it because I'm hoping that it's going to help people that maybe don't know much about mental illness or have to deal with it themselves or don't really know about trauma that much, or just to bring awareness, and hopefully my experience with trauma can help you know that there's options, because when I figured out what was happening to me, I didn't really know what to do. Like, my brain wasn't really working correctly and I shut down. It was hard, because you just don't know what to do. You don't know if you can just be a normal person again. And it's scary and it's not fun. It's horrible. Hopefully, again, talking about my story will help you or someone you know who's going through this to find some peace and know what resources there are available. And if you don't, then this is something hopefully to keep an eye out. If, with all the Me Too stuff that's going on lately, people who haven't been in these kind of situations don't really know how bad it is for the other party. This isn't particularly about sexual abuse, but just about abuse and trauma in general, at least from my experience. Hopefully, hearing this will help maybe empathize with how they're feeling or, positive stuff. Anyway, I felt that it was important to come out now with this because I feel like it wasn't healthy for me to not talk about this on a more public platform. Not a lot of people know about this. Before this video came out, I told my team about a month ago of this recording. Obviously, my parents and my close friends know, but no one else really knows. And another reason I'm doing this is to hope that this doesn't happen again, not to this kind of level. In 2016, I developed post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people know what that is, but in case you don't know what it is, it's basically when someone is at a high level of stress and they feel like they're in danger, it just basically screws up their mind, causes them to relive trauma over and over again in their head. They have a lot of problems basically grounding themselves and finding reality and symptoms like that. If you don't know more about it, I'll leave some resources in the description, or you can just Google it or whatever you want to do, really. In my experience, how I describe it, it's basically something that you never thought would happen kind of happens, like a freak thing. Something I've learned is you don't really compare your trauma with other people's trauma because obviously it's still having an impact on you. No one's suffering more. That's not the point. The point is to hopefully help you heal. It was due to online harassment. I'm not going to go into any more details. If people catch what I'm alluding to, great. But if not, then, I feared for my safety, not just about my channel, which, it's where I put my content, but where I put a lot of my creative energy, but it was much further than that. It was like, oh God, everyone I know is not talking to me or afraid to talk to me or see if I was okay, and no one knew what to do, and everyone was telling me how much of a horrible person I was. And it was really scary, and I felt like I had done something so wrong that people couldn't be honest with me about it. That people felt justified to gossip and to draw attention, and, it was really hard to see people I thought who were my friends, who were aware of my situation or aware of something that was happening to me and were being vocal on social media, but they didn't even try to say, not even on a public platform, to even try to contact me directly in a private manner in a text or something and say, hey, are you okay? And it really hurt. And I also had a lot of people telling me this was my fault, because that's what you tell someone with trauma. I won't give names, obviously, but I just didn't know what to do. I was afraid of really irrational stuff, that someone was going to attack me, someone was going to find out where I lived. It went much beyond what people were perceiving it as. And later, and I didn't realize till later what was happening when other people told me stuff directly, and it helped me understand more of the situation, I suppose, but it still didn't make everything okay. I still have these issues even now, and it's just really scary because it's something I've had to constantly deal with for a long time now at this point, and it's hard, and the lack of accountability is really hard. That's why I relate to these women who are coming out with the Me Too stuff. But I've been through pretty intense trauma, and It's hard, especially when people aren't taking accountability because they don't really understand what the other person had to go through. It's just stupid bullshit. And a lot of times I would just stay up and like relive things and try to figure out what exactly happened even before I kind of realized I kind of knew more information. But yeah, it just, even now I'm just like, oh god, did I do that thing that might have scared that person? Like, I was afraid to talk to people because I felt like people weren't going to be honest with me about just about anything, really. I'm still kind of afraid of people. I still struggle with isolating myself because people are gross and people hurt other people, and it just hurt. In general, I felt betrayed by a larger amount of people, like a community that I was, serving, I was making content for. I just saw the most disgusting of human nature, that people, even when they were caught, lied about different aspects of their involvement just to avoid consequence. When I first realized I was going through a traumatic incident, mostly I had to really realize it myself. I knew mentally there was something wrong, like I was crying a lot more often, I felt physically sick much more often, I had problems eating, and it just kind of got worse and worse from there until I was mostly dependent on my parents to take care of me. Everyone's experience differs, obviously, and sometimes it's not as intense, or sometimes it's more intense, or, I eventually developed a minor eating disorder where I couldn't keep down food for long periods of time, and because of my lack of nutrition, I was tired all the time, like half bedridden pretty much. It was pretty horrible. I felt that I was never gonna get better because I guess that's the thing with mental illness. Like, there's not really a black and white answer. There's not really a black and white cure about you take this certain medication and suddenly, or you have to take the surgery and we can do X, Y, and Z. There's not a doctor figuring a plan about what needs to be put in place in order for you to recover. It's basically, well, you'll go to therapy, I suppose, and we'll try to help you, but that's the best we can hope for, I suppose. I also had problems driving. I couldn't sleep correctly for a long time because I kept on getting, like, what I realize now are flashbacks of just really surreal stuff, I suppose, that I couldn't understand. I was basically afraid of everything, and I was afraid of my parents at the high point of the trauma because I felt like I couldn't trust anything, and this went on for about 6 months or so, 4 to 6 months. I had one college class to finish before I got my degree, and I had to tell my professor, I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm getting sick, and I don't know when I can attend class. And he's like, don't worry about it, just come when you can. And that's what I did, and I think I got a B in that class. That's not really important. And it's scary, especially if you don't have a support system, because, again, I had to strongly rely on my parents in order to get me to therapy, in order to help me get around, I suppose, make sure I wasn't gonna die somehow, or, like, drink some bleach or something like that. Especially if you don't have people that are supportive, especially if you don't have health insurance, which is a thing that happens. It's just, like, I don't know how anyone does it if they don't have those resources available, because I barely survived, and not only did I have psychiatrists and therapists, but I also was hospitalized. In the summer of 2017, I had a really bad relapse, and, I was hospitalized for about a month, about a week inpatient, and about 3 weeks partial hospitalization, which is basically you're there, but you get to sleep at home. Just trying to recover and trying to think a lot of it had to do with my self-confidence or my lack of self-confidence, and I couldn't really find myself during this time. Like, I didn't know who I was anymore because people were telling me constantly who I was with as little information as they could, or with what information they had. And, after a certain point, you don't know what to believe anymore. You can tune that stuff out, you can turn off your phone or stuff, but those thoughts are still with you. I saw a lot of little things that helped, a lot of the little, like, kindnesses. Like, I went to a convention just to help myself feel better at the time, not really to do anything, and I was very much like, if I wasn't doing something, I was in my hotel room just, like, chilling and resting because, like, I couldn't do anything. Like, I had a mom who came up to me and was like, can I pray for you? Because I know, like, people are telling me that you're sick, and I'm just like, sure, brony mom, thanks for your support. And a lot of, like, all my team was supportive, like, which no one really talks about, I guess. They were like, just do whatever you need. We're just gonna chill until you're ready to make content again. And I'm like, if you're ready to make content again, if you ever want to make content again. And it was just a major mistrusting issue because, you know, should I make content again for people that were so vocally disgusting towards me, you know, even though it was such a minority? That was all I could hear in my head, I suppose. Even now, I still deal with physical and mental issues. It scares me because it feels like it's going to hold me back from being a productive adult. And it will get in the way of achieving, like, what I want to do professionally. And this is not what I want to do like, I like doing this, but, you know, at the end of the day, I'd like to do more. Not that this isn't enough. I like to do both. I like to do more than this. More than YouTube. Still keep YouTube in my life, but not it be my only part of my life. You know, because I have to deal with, physical symptoms and mental symptoms. You know, I have to make sure I eat, or I have to make sure that I don't basically go crazy, and it's really, it's just scary, and I hate it, and it's gross. I don't know really what else there is to say. PTSD is just gross and disgusting, and it's horrible. You can basically get it from, I don't want to say anything to scare people, but you can basically get it from one to many traumatic incidents. It just depends on the person and how trauma affects their brain, which, you know, obviously no one really knows until it happens. You develop PTSD when the symptoms of the trauma don't go away after about a 3 or 4 month period. They just feel like they're replaying in your head over and over again, and just like, why can't you just get over it? It's been X amount of time. And I'm just like, because I'm fucked up, that's how. It was just a really, really scary part of my life. It was probably the worst part of my life, period, end of discussion. You do get better. It just takes a lot of goddamn time to kind of feel like you're not gonna burst into flames and you don't want to jump off a bridge. You don't feel like someone's going to come after you. People always think it's an ego thing, like, oh, they just have it because they can't take rejection, but it's so much. It usually has nothing to do with that. It's usually about people physically feeling in danger, even though there might not be any physical danger. It's irrational fears like that. Or a lot of people obviously have things that happen physically that they're like, oh god, I just had a car crash. What happens if I get into a car and I have another car crash? It's these really odd, irrational thoughts that no one really wants to talk about. I'm hoping that if you are going through a traumatic incident or you know someone who is, always recommend therapy. Hospitalization for psychiatrical needs is always an option too if people aren't getting better. They might do something that might hurt themselves. That's always an option. And, you know, it just takes time, and depending on the person, how much time it takes, usually doesn't take as long as it took for me. Hopefully it takes about like 4 months before you start feeling better with medication and all sorts of other fun stuff. Friends hopefully will be supportive. I usually just pick and choose who I tell, I suppose. I'm pretty open about it at this point, but I don't want to make my friends feel like a dependent, like they have to talk to me or else I'm just going to go insane, pretty much. You kind of have to find different ways to vent your feelings or deal with things that don't involve other people, I suppose, and that's scary. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but the majority of the time, you just gotta make it work, I suppose. I'm hoping this kind of help people that are dealing with something like this, whether it's something minor as depression. PTSD is treated as depression plus anxiety on a psychiatric level, but it's like 10 times worse for my I've been depressed many times before being diagnosed, and it's like a million times worse than depression, I promise. Because at least depression, you're sad, but you don't feel like you're losing your mind. Again, that varies on the person. I don't want to speak for everyone, but in my personal experience, that's how it's felt. There's always options in case you can't afford therapy. The biggest thing is finding emotional support groups. Like, I hate to say, I'm going to use an example that might sound weird, but AA is an emotional support group, even if you're not an alcoholic. It serves the same purpose as being group therapy, talking about things to kind of help vent them and get a feedback, and that's always an option. So just being smart about what your options are, talking to your doctor about I feel this or I feel that, or being honest, because not a lot of people are honest about mental health these days because they feel like it might be a demeaning thing, but I always felt like it was a relief because at least I knew what was wrong with me versus just feeling like something was wrong with you. It's like, well, that's it. Well, at least we know we can do things to help, not prevent it, because you can't really prevent or cure this, but it's more like you can do things to help, like little things to help, like taking, antidepressants or taking anti-anxiety medication, or you have a lot of options available if you feel like this is something you're dealing with. So again, that's my mental health story. Just try it as well to be honest with people with your expectations, be honest with people about how you feel, because my story was about basically a misunderstanding that exploded hugely, but even being able to talk about things that might have bothered you can help you become closer with other people in your life, I suppose. And people have this tendency to be over polite and not be honest because confrontation is hard. But in my experience, I'm painfully direct, especially after this, and it's helped mitigate a lot of things that might become issues in my life, being, hey, I like this. What do you want out of this? And hopefully that's your takeaway if you're not dealing with any of these issues, but just be supportive of each other is the best thing I can say, especially in a fandom like this. I've become a little bit disillusioned in its sense, but I hope this video will bring out some of the positive aspects by being able to help each other either communicate better or deal with things that are harder down the road. So feel free to share your mental health stories or just talk about basically anything that you found interesting in the comments. I'll be checking to see what you guys are saying. I keep on saying this, but I hope this video helps others heal, because that's why I'm publicly coming out with it at this point. And have a good day.